Paula, do you? have
We're
a camera?
recording.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. It's September 15th, 2025. This is the first of two meetings of the Amherst Town Council. Both will be using the same Zoom link for those attending virtually. Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025 extended through June 30th, 2027, the ability of public bodies to meet in full, remote, or hybrid manner. This law allows us to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of the council physically present at the meeting location. This meeting is accessible in real time by Zoom, by phone, and as a live broadcast on Amherst Media Channel 9 and through live stream. While we are allowed to attend remotely, in fact, there are 12 counselors in the room tonight. Thank you. Please be advised that this meeting is being held in person, and if remote access for some reason does not continue, we will go on with the meeting as long as we have a quorum of the council in the room. Given that we have a quorum of the council present, I'm calling the September 15th public forum on the master plan to order at 6:31. I'm going to call on councilors and by the way in which they have indicated they would like to be addressed, and they will unmute and say present. This means we can hear them and they can hear us. Pat DeAngelis.
Present.
Anna Devlin Gothier.
Present.
Councilor Ette.
Present.
Lynn Griesmer's present. Councilor Haneke.
Present.
Bob Hagner.
Present.
Councilor Lord. Cam Rooney. Here. Councilor Ryan.
Present.
Kathy Shane.
Here.
Andy Steinberg.
Present.
Jennifer Taub.
Here.
Councilor Walker.
Here.
Thank you. There's no chat room for this meeting. If councilors have technical issues, please let Athena and me know. To make a comment or ask a question, please use the raised hand button. There will be one public comment period during the public forum, but I also want to point out that there will be two public comment periods during the regular meeting. One will be associated with the continued hearing from last week, and the other will in fact be the general public comment. Please make sure that you sign up for the correct one. We're going to move directly to the public forum as stated in the charter, section 2.13. We shall hold a public forum on every year regarding the master plan. And the public forum shall present the public with context, alert the public to upcoming issues, and collect feedback from the public. This public is on the master plan. And tonight we have with us Nate Malloy, senior planner for the town of Amherst. And he is going to make a brief presentation, and then we are going to have him available to answer questions.
Sure. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Nate Malloy, a planner with the town. So the Amherst Master Plan was adopted in 2010 by the Planning Board after almost 5 years of public participation. There was a consultant involved, there were steering committees, there was a comprehensive planning committee. And so, it was a big effort to get support by the town. It was the first plan in about 40 years. And there's a land use master plan associated with it, which is shown on this slide. I think that's important. So, it's a narrative, it's a document, it's pretty lengthy. And there's also a map associated with it. A lot of, what it talks about is, what could happen on the ground in Amherst. Next slide, please. So really, it's meant to be a dynamic document. It sets a general framework for long-term planning, physical planning of the municipality. And for any community in Massachusetts that has a planning board, it's required by law that they develop a master plan and adopt it. Next slide, please. So the master law outlines a number of chapters that needs to be followed and have in a master plan. And, a master plan can be relatively short, it can be really lengthy. And so it's, it's dependent on what the, community wants. And so, really it starts with a goal statement and policy statement, and then these remaining chapters. And then there's an implementation chapter at the end, really about how do you go about implementing the master plan. So for Amherst, the charter says it should be renewed about every 20 years. So that's 2030. It takes a few years to get a master plan going. I think that's really important to consider. It's not something that takes a year, it takes a few years. And then, there's all these chapters in there. And so the current master plan did an existing conditions assessment for every chapter that they then had goals, objectives, and strategies. And so they didn't jump right in to write the master plan. They studied the community and had it in existing conditions on land use, existing conditions on demographics, and then wrote the master plan based on all the existing conditions and public input. Next slide. So these are just, the slides will show you what are some of the objectives in each of the categories. And, I think as a general framework for a community, the master plan, it's set up with a goal for each category, objectives, and strategies. And so I think it's important to know that as a general document, some of these objectives may seem inconsistent, but to me, they're just, they're general. And so then it's the community's idea of how do you implement them and adopt them. And so, for instance, preserving undeveloped land, to me, doesn't mean preserve every undeveloped piece of property that was there in 2010. It's, how do you prioritize what's undeveloped and how do you preserve it? Next slide, please. So demographics and housing, similarly, right? So encourage a greater mix of housing throughout town, for a range of income levels. The town's been working on that. And so, at what point, and what are the income levels they change, where in town might you want certain types of housing might change. And so, I think these objectives are still relevant today. So then how do you implement them and make them adapt and fit 2025? Next slide. On natural and cultural resources, again, Amherst has a lot of open space. Cultural tourism is really important. Environmental sustainability. And so it has, a number of objectives on these topics, and we're still working through them. Next slide. Transportation and circulation. Amherst, is not creating a lot of new roadways and subdivisions. So, how do you maintain the infrastructure we have? How do you connect people to village centers and downtown? And what kind of improvements can you make to the existing infrastructure? Next slide. Implementation. I think it's important, there's a number of categories here. You could put it in different buckets. How do you implement the master plan? Some of it is by implementing, regulations and policies locally to reinforce what the master plan has as a general framework. So we have a zoning bylaw, we have a comprehensive housing policy, we have a housing market study, and all those reinforce the master plan. Oftentimes we have the planning board adopt those as supplements to the master plan to reinforce it. We support affordable housing. The community facilitates the development of housing. We provide funding for housing. More recently, the town purchased 457 Main Street for a permanent shelter in support of housing. We permitted wayfinders down in East Amherst for affordable housing. And there's amendments to the zoning bylaw and general bylaws to try to implement the master plan. We updated inclusionary zoning to have a better percentage of affordable units in projects. We updated the food and drink establishment to make it easier to permit restaurants in town. We have the rental registration bylaw. And the University Drive Overlay District is a more recent adoption of a zoning overlay on University Drive to encourage mixed-use developments, so to support economic development and housing. Next slide. Public infrastructure improvements. So, although, there's a paving plan every year, really it's about how do we can implement those in village centers and downtown. And so the town's been successful at applying for grants to leverage local funds. So we've had multi-use paths on North Pleasant Street and Mill Lane and East Hadley Road. We've developed roundabouts throughout town and village centers, and recent improvements on Belchertown Road include bike lanes and new sidewalks. Municipal facilities are really important. So we have, an updated ADA transition plan, make facilities accessible, make them open to everyone. And so we're working on the town common restoration is nearly complete, new track and field, and a new elementary school. So all those you could, to me, those projects are reinforcing the master plan and furthering environmental sustainability. We have the bike share program, a new stormwater bylaw, on incentives for property owners for renewable energy. So we have the heat pump program, energy aggregation. And so all those were ideas that you could say developed in the master plan, and we're just reinforcing it through implementation. I think that may be the end of the presentation. Next slide. That's it. All right.
The floor is now open for public comment. If you would like to make public comment and you are in the town room, please make sure that you have registered with Athena. She's over here. if you're on Zoom and you would like to make public comment with regard to the master plan, please raise your hand. We will have public comment later with regard to both the hearing that we are holding, we held over from last week, and we will also have public comment as a general public comment during the regular council meeting. Three? Okay, Athena is telling me that we have three people who are in the town room who would like to make who would like to make public comment on the master plan. And I'm seeing one person on Zoom who would like to make public comment. Let's begin with the people in the town room. Athena?
Vince O'Connor. Okay, Meg Gage.
Please limit your public comment to 3 minutes. And if there's questions, we do try to answer them during this time period.
Yep,
There's
there's a timer.
right there. It's on the screen.
Thank you so much, everyone, for having this public comment period. I hope sometime soon or eventually we could have a longer one and look in more depth at how we can implement the terrific master plan. 3 years ago, the District 1 Neighborhood Association convened a study group to look at the master plan and how it could be best implemented in North Amherst. All of our different parts of town are different. They all can relate to the master plan, but in quite different ways. We started out our process with a SWOT analysis, SWOT. I'm sure many of you done those. Strengths, threats, opportunities, and risks. Is that right? No, threats. And sort of had that as a framework for the particular things about North Amherst and District 1. We had a very diverse group of leaders from who don't agree with each other on a bunch of things, who took this in-depth look at the master plan. District 1 has a lot of great things going for it. We have 2 village centers. We have some really robust, intact neighborhoods. We have really robust farmland, thanks to Lake Hitchcock, which left a lot of really some of the best soil in the world along the west side of District 1. We are thrilled to have the Valley CDC project putting 30 new homes in our neighborhood. We were known as YIMBYs. Yes, in my backyard, because we're so enthusiastic about the project. We're proud of the Survival Center. We have 2 co-housing communities. It's a wonderful part of town. But we also have horrific traffic and pedestrian safety problems and bicycle safety. We have a number of student housing that, while the students enhance our districts in many ways, they also undermine neighborhood integrity. We have 10 apartment complexes between the north end of the university and Riverside Apartments in Mill Hollow. We really need to implement some of the things that are in the plan that we think would help us address some of these things. A few other people are going to speak about some of the particular details of the plan. And if it's possible at the end, I'd like to come back and go over some of the high-level observations about implementing the master plan. It's a wonderful plan. It's almost too much. The town faces enormous challenges: financial, demographic, population changes, housing. And I think there are a lot of people in this town who are clever, who are smart, creative, and knowledgeable, who could be helpful. We just need to take the time to think more carefully about how to solve these really huge problems. We're not alone in these problems. And if there's time, I'll come back and address some of those really difficult challenges and how we might solve them. Yay.
Thank you.
1 second left.
I'm going to go ahead and, is there somebody specifically that's following you?
Andy Churchill would be good.
Okay, Andy, please enter the room and state your name and where you live.
Hello, am I in the room?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Andy Churchill. I lived in North Amherst for about 30 years, and in January I moved to South Amherst. So I'm now exploring the village center down here. But I was part of this group, and I wanted to just bring your attention to some sort of broad North Amherst specific observations about the master plan. There are 4 of them. It's on page 3 of the report. And there are things that, some overarching themes that emerged in our discussion. So the first is that it would be useful to have an up-to-date inventory of where development can and can't happen, so that we can understand what areas are appropriate for housing or business and what areas are off limits due to wetlands or protected parcels. And I believe the planning board is starting to discuss something like that townwide, which would be great. But that's what we thought when we were looking at this. Second was the idea of an integrated transportation plan that integrates pedestrians, bicycles, public transportation, cars, commercial trucks, and connects North Amherst to the rest of town and to UMass, because there's a lot of the traffic circulation in North Amherst is kind of strange around the North Amherst Library. There's a very difficult intersection that is challenging, and I think figuring that out with all of those types of transportation modes would be useful, or we thought that. Third is the notion of having, we called them village design guidelines that would be focused on the sort of North Amherst village, but it's really saying form-based code to get a sense from the citizens of what the look of things should be. And I know that's something that's been explored in the past, and it would be something that the group thought would be worth looking at in the future. And then finally, we noted that the master plan was developed before online shopping and before working from home changed the business use of space. And so for thinking about developing, the downtown and village centers, thinking about what economic development looks like, mixed use may have been a different thing when people shopped in brick and mortar stores and when people went to the office to go to work. So it's just something that the next iteration of the master plan or planning leading up to that might want to be thinking about. What does economic development look like when people shop online and work from home? So those are 4 themes that we thought were useful for North Amherst. We thought they might have some more general use in planning going forward. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us. Athena.
Vince O'Connor.
Vince O'Connor, 175 Summer Street. With respect to the proposed master plan, which I have not had a chance to review, I would urge the members of the council to do 2 things. One, look at the proposal for the district you represent. Thoroughly evaluate it. Is that really what you think should be done in your district? The second is a series of points which I think are very necessary to evaluate the entirety of the thing. One, for North Amherst, the village center definitions were ridiculous in terms of walking time and so forth, and essentially made the entirety of North Amherst a village center. Another issue under housing, the issue of the luxury priced, not luxury housing, but luxury priced student housing, its impact on legacy apartments rent levels. And that is all the apartments on North Pleasant Street that are still there, the ones on East Hadley Road, those rent levels have gone up to go to where the $1,800 to $2,000 a month price for a single bedroom apartment in these 5-story buildings has gone. You are pricing that policy of allowing those buildings to go in that way are pricing families out of this town. Third, the LLC purchases of single-family homes for student rentals. If this master plan does not address that issue, you are wasting your time. You might as well turn the town over to the university today. And finally, in terms of assisting families, there needs to be something addressed to the practices of rental housing agencies that require that families earn in 1 week the entirety of the rental amount for that month, or get a guarantor. Students have no problem with that. They certainly are not earning that much money, but they can get a guarantor, their parents. And that provision of saying you must earn in 1 week or have a guarantor is pricing families out of this town. And I can give you specific examples if any member of the council wants to hear them. So thank you very much for your time. Please put this thing on hold until it addresses all the issues in town, not just the ones that are directed toward the 5-story building, corporate entities that.
Thank you for your comments. Janet Keller, please enter the room, state your name and where you live.
Janet Keller. I live in North Amherst, where I've lived for 14 years. I want to make one point and underscore the need to update the inventory of where development can and cannot go due to wetlands and floodplains, and also agricultural land that we should be preserving. The reasons for the wetlands and the floodplain protection and in our regulations are that it's widespread in all parts of Amherst, and the intensity of storms is we're already experiencing it getting worse as the planet warms. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Eve Vogel.
Please come forward and state your name and where you live.
Hi, I'm Eve Vogel. I live at 135 Harlow Drive. Good to see you all. I haven't seen many of you for a number of years. We've all been kind of busy, I think. So I was also part of the North Amherst Master Plan group. And the reason I think it's worth the whole council thinking about it actually is because it was a group of people that came together from a bunch of different interests. So people who were public housing, transportation, business, varieties of people who were all really thinking, and also because North Amherst really brings together many of the same things that the whole town does. Village centers, fast moving roads, neighborhoods, student housing, all of those things are present in North Amherst. And so the issues that we came up with are actually issues that are relevant to the whole town. So I'm just going to emphasize a few in my remaining 2 minutes. One is that the master plan said we need a balanced, inclusive, accessible, safe, environmentally responsible transportation and circulation system that serves users of public transit, pedestrians, bicyclists, and drivers, and that is connected with and among different modes, both in Amherst and the region. We still need that. We've moved in the 17 years that I've lived in North Amherst and Amherst very slowly and inadequately towards a robust multimodal transportation system that will seriously invite people to do anything other than drive their cars when they do basic commuting to work, shopping, taking their kids to school. I was one of the very few people who did that when I had a kid on my bike, and I still know very few people who are doing that. Studies have shown that what is needed is infrastructure that the vast majority of people just feel is safe and that they feel comfortable in. That's what makes the difference. So we have a pedestrian and bicycle plan. There are two pieces that never happened. One was to create a map of what the vision was of what the network ought to be. That was started, it was never completed. The second thing that was never completed was a timeline of how we're going to get to that map and what are the steps to get there. That's what I think needs to happen in terms of transportation to implement the really great vision of the master plan. In addition to transportation, I'm just going to mention a couple things that were not my specialty in the committee, but that other people came up with. There are a lot of services and facilities, including in North Amherst, that are underused. They vary from the Cherry Hill to the Old North Amherst School. These are things that might be able to be used as resources for teens, for potentially increased pre-K, for other kinds of programs for a lot of people in the community. And they are assets that we really ought to be thinking about and that could be really helpful to building our neighborhoods and our town. And I'm going to, in my last 8 seconds, I'll just say, we encourage you to find grants for transportation. I think the Complete Streets program in the state still exists. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us. The floor is open if anybody else would like to make public comment, and in your case, come on back up.
Meg Gage, still North Amherst, Montague Road. Just quickly, it's really useful for a district to do this kind of process because you think about, all this big stuff. We need economic development, we need, but you think about it in terms of your own neighborhoods and the people who live there, and people get much more creative, they get much more engaged. And I really, we had this list of people who came to 5 long meetings and did homework in between, because I think it was about, there was trust, it was about their part of town, and it was with an optimism that maybe we could have universal preschool, or maybe we could have safer streets and safer sidewalks. So I just encourage you to think that way. It's a huge plan, it's really good, but we're not moving it along. And if we could, it would help us solve so many of the problems that we're facing.
Thank you for joining us. And thank you for the coordinated discussion on North Amherst. Are there any other public comments at this time? Seeing none, I'm going to move that we adjourn the public forum and seek a second.
Second.
Thank you. I'll take the roll call. Pat DeAngelis.
Present.
You're voting
You
to
can vote,
close the
but-
forum.
Yes.
Thank you. Anna Devlin Gothier.
Aye.
Counselor Ette.
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer's aye. Counselor Haneke.
Aye.
Bob Hagner.
Aye.
Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane. Yes. Andy Steinberg.
Aye.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Thank you. We are going to move immediately into our, I'm sorry, Kathy, you have your hand up?
I just have a question. I know we just closed the public forum, but I think some of the points that were made would be good to have a session for the council on the master plan, because one of the things we heard 7 years ago is unfinished business. And we heard that mainly in CRC. There was some discussion led by Chris Bishop of where there was more work to be done. So I would encourage we try to find time to do that.
Okay. And Nate, if I'm correct, we have to do another master plan by when?
Sure. Thanks, everyone. Nate again. So, 20 years according to the charter with there's like a 2-year allowance to complete it. So, if, I would still have a target of 2030 with the allowance of going a little beyond that.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thanks for joining us tonight in person. That was lovely. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our regular meeting. It's still September 15th. This is the second meeting. Since I've already done roll call, I Unless somebody on the council would like me to do it again, I'm not going to take the time. All right. Everybody's still here. I'm going to move on then to announcements and just mention that our two meetings in October are October 6th and October 20th. Both will begin at 6:30. There are various meetings of Community Resource Committee coming up, Finance Committee, GOL, and Town Services and Outreach. I do want to mention very briefly that we have the block party this Thursday, starting at 5. Make sure that if you're planning to come downtown, you realize that some roads will be blocked, but come join us for the block party. Crest Day is on Sunday, the 21st, starting at noon, and that will be at Mill River. This is their anniversary celebration, is also an opportunity for them to provide us with some updates. And finally, we are still accepting applications for the Civic Education Academy. Civic Academy. This is something that has been put together by the staff of Town Hall. You can apply. It occurs on Thursday evenings for 8 weeks and the application is on the town's website. Okay. With that, we're going to move on to the continuation of the hearing. I'm sorry, Kathy.
Leonard, I just have one correction. We've changed the Finance Committee meeting time. It's now going to be 10 in the morning, and that's a permanent change where we needed to accommodate some schedule issues. I
Okay.
just didn't catch it in the agenda. So we are meeting tomorrow, but it's at 10, not at 2.
Thank you very much for that correction. Also, George, did you want to make one other announcement?
Thank you, Lynn. Just very quickly, I think I gave everyone an invitation on behalf of the Centenary Committee for St. Bridget's. We hope that if you can attend, it would be great. The event is Saturday, September 27th. It's at 4:30. If you've never seen the inside of the church, it's an opportunity to see it. I think it's a quite beautiful building, and it is 100 years old. And so, again, just extending that invitation.
Thank you. I should also mention that there is a food drive going on at the Amherst Survival Center on Saturday as well. We're going to move on to the continuation of the hearing for the Eversource petition for the pole relocation and placement at University Drive and Amity Street intersection. Tonight, we are joined by Guilford Mooring. The person from Eversource is not able to be with us, but since most of the questions were questions that DPW was involved in determining, we felt like this would take care of the problem. Mr. Mooring, welcome. And would you like to make some preliminary remarks based on what you heard about the hearing last week?
So, yes, I can make some preliminary remarks. When we started this project, the goal was to get a Mass Works grant for this project and keep the cost within a Mass Works grant. And Mass Works grants are usually around $2 million is what the usual grant amount is. The scope of work we had for the intersection, the estimate we had was almost a little over $2 million. We tweaked it down to just under $2 million, and we applied for 1.9 million for the grant. So in doing that scoping, there was no discussion about undergrounding utilities. The utilities were proposed to stay where they are and be adjusted as needed to fit into the roundabout. The same was done for the Atkins Corner roundabout and the roundabout at Pomeroy. There was no undergrounding of utilities considered with those grants as well. So that's kind of how we started this and how we got to this point. And I understand there's lots of questions now about what can we do? Can we do anything? So I'm willing to take questions.
Okay. Councilor comments or questions? Andy Steinberg. Yes, you can repeat what you said last week. This is just a continuation of the same hearing. Andy?
I think what I was concerned about is that the way the drawing appeared, it looked like there was a wire in the that would go directly over the roundabout, and be forcing cars to go under that, which was both a visual question and a question of whether it's going to be at a sufficient height that it's not going to interfere with any major construction type equipment or whatever that might need to use that intersection, which is a fairly major intersection. So why is it necessary to have the wire go over essentially that much roadway, and what are the risks involved?
I'm going to go on and ask George Ryan for your questions.
Well, I have two really, and I based pretty much on what I remember we said last time. I got the feeling from the Eversource representative that there were reasons why putting it underground would not really work or would be very difficult or not feasible. And so one question was, and that wasn't made clear. So I wanted to ask you, Guilford, if it would even be possible or feasible or appropriate. I know you already said that it's not something that was even considered, so maybe that's the answer. But in the discussion, the impression was given, at least in my sense, that there were reasons why it wouldn't be appropriate to put it underground at that particular site. The second question that I recall is if it were to go forward, if it were to go underground, it would cost more money. And the question would be, first of all, who would pay for that? And I don't think you can answer this tonight, but the second question was, and how much more would it cost?
Pam Rooney, I'm going to gather some questions and then have you address them, okay? Pam?
Yeah, thank you. The question that I had posed previously was, when this intersection is being completely torn up, I'm guessing there will be underground utilities of all kinds being reworked in this vicinity. We have sanitary lines, we have storm lines. This would be an ideal opportunity to lay electric duct bank through this intersection for all of the reasons that people stated last time. The least of which is the aesthetics, but that in fact is a major intersection. It's an entrance to town. It's an entrance to campus. And, if we don't start now, when do we start cleaning up the overhead scramble that we have to look at all the time? Thank you.
Councillor Haneke?
I'm curious why putting these lines underground was not even considered, even for this short span. The council in many of our poll hearings for the last 7 years has been urging lines to go underground when possible, for all the reasons Councillor Rooney and others at last week said. So why isn't it standard procedure to, when redesigning intersections like this, investigate and plan for lines going underground?
Okay, and my other final comment was similar to last week, and that is, while we're doing the intersection, can we at least put conduits down for the possibility later on of putting other utilities underground? With that, why don't I go to Guilford, and we welcome your response.
I'll start at the top of the questions. So the alignment was chosen by Eversource and the other people on the polls. There are actually 8 sets of lines on the pole now. There's high power, there's service power, and then there's six communications type lines. There's Verizon, there's Comcast, there's 5 colleges on there, and then I think there's two more, either it's two Verizon lines and 2 Comcast lines, and I think there's also a GoNet Mobile. So that's how many different people we have to deal with. 7 people. That's how many are on the pole. The telephone company was not. We tried to span as far as we could straight across the center of the roundabout to keep the alignment the way it is now. But the telephone company, who is closer to the bottom of the pile, was concerned that the span was too long and that the sag in their line would be too great and would be too close to the road. And that would interfere with the future of vehicles going underneath it. So they pushed for splitting the difference between the two poles and coming up with what you see here. We didn't want to put the pole in the center of the roundabout, so that's why it's off to the side. And then when you set a pole off to the side, you then have to counteract the force of that wire by having a guide pole to pull things back in. So that's why there's a guide pole on the north side of the east side of the intersection. So this is kind of how the alignment came about, just to accommodate everybody so that the bottom lines weren't too low to the ground. So why is
Please go ahead.
So why is it not appropriate, as Eversource said, to underground this one section? And then again, as Mandy Joe asked, why aren't we undergrounding every little section we get to when we work on? Eversource and the utility companies would be happy to sit down with the town and work out a plan on which areas you want to underground first and come up with a logical way to address them all. But they do not have the capabilities to do little sections at a time. Eversource actually has a limit of how much they'll underground at one time, and this is not even close to being within that limit of undergrounding. The limit is around a half mile that they'll underground at a time, so they just don't even look at putting existings underground unless it's at least that long. So it's not appropriate because it just doesn't fit their criteria for work. The utility does have some cost in this, but the majority of the cost of doing an underground project like this falls to the person who wants it underground, which is the town. And whatever's not paid for by the town then gets passed to the ratepayers of the services, and that's allowed by the DPU. So they try to keep the lengths of undergrounding at a reasonable and feasible, financially feasible change, so it's not a lot of up and down, up and down. Again, if you're going down and you go back up, if you're doing it for short distances, you might have to add more poles for guy poles to keep the forces on the lines from pulling poles down. Who pays? I kind of hit that already. The person who wants it underground usually pays for this. Eversource will help a little bit. Eversource does the design and the layout without having to charge the town. And then the town would pay for other things that has to be installed. In the past, the town would actually just do the work and get it done, maybe a little cheaper, maybe not a little cheaper, but usually at a little cheaper rate. Verizon actually charges for the engineering work. If you want to have the wire removed, you have to first pay them to engineer the changes, and then you can then pay them to do the changes once the conduits are installed. GoNet has said that they want to be paid for everything, but I think we probably would get them in the same line as Verizon, or somewhere between Verizon and Wemco. And then Comcast has been pretty good about designing it and then coming to us and telling us how much the whole work will cost. So that's who pays. Why not put in the conduits now and then have the conduits there for the future? So we would, as I said, there's 8 separate lines on the pole. So we would have to put in a duct bank for Eversource, which is 9 conduits, and they would be 5 inches in diameter right now. For each of the other ones, each of the other 6, we would have to put in 2 conduits for each one of those. So we'd have to fit all that in there and figure out how to get it through. You also have to keep it segregated. Electric is electric, and they go from electric vault to electric vault. And then the 6 other lines would have to go to their own handholds as well. Hopefully, if a couple of them I think there's two Verizons on there. If there's two Verizons on there, hopefully you can kind of make a 4 duct bank and go into one handhold and then go to another handhold. So it's a lot to plan, a lot to put into the project. At the stage the project is now, it would delay the project at least a year to year and a half to probably get this all worked out. We do have a deadline for the Mass Works grant that it has to be complete by the end of June, which will probably ask for an extension to go to the end of December in 26. But I don't think they would allow us to go much into another year, fiscal year after that. I think I got them all. I might have missed one or two.
Kathy?
So maybe we can't look backwards to ask Mandy's question of why wasn't this done in the first place? So I want to ask the forward-looking, if and I can think of one intersection that desperately needs a Mass Work grant, but if we are thinking of major road work and going to the state, if we included this kind of infrastructure change, wouldn't they consider it? And if they would be leery of it, in terms of it might raise the cost, I can understand that. If they would be leery at it, can't we make a strong argument why this makes sense? I mean, we're in a climate with storms, utility poles go down. When I drove through town, I forget which day it was, but the intersection by Amherst College was out, and that was interesting to watch people jockey for going left, right, or through the street. So lines come down. Can't we plan in advance to have this not occur again, that just get it as part of it, that we want to put these lines underground? And I can understand why it would increase the cost of the project. And Guilford, I remember when you said with the repair of Route 9 coming in from the state, it was well timed, because while it was dug up, you could get sewer and water pipes fixed while the road was dug up. So I think of this as, if we're going to dig it up, fix it for the long term. So can we think of that as forward and get something to Mass Works to say they should be thinking about this with us?
We definitely can. Remember I said there's 8 lines on that pole? Water and sewer is controlled by only one individual's, the water and sewer commissioners. So it's an easier task to get the water and sewer upgraded than it is to coordinate the different utilities on the pole. So, but that can be done, and it can be done efficiently. When we applied for the grant for the Triangle Street East Pleasant roundabout, Mass Works paid for all the undergrounding of the conduits and all that work. The grant was set up that way because we wanted to put the lines underground so that you could have denser development on the corners. I can't even think of the name of this. Oh man, what's one Kendrick Place could not have been built the way it was built unless the lines had gone underground. And that was the argument we made to Mass Works, was you'll have less development with the setup you have with the lines. And if you actually put the lines underground, you can have a denser development on that corner. And that's why that was approved. But Mass Works paid for the undergrounding of most of the utilities and just a small part of the road work. And then the town actually ended up paying for most of the road work that was done. So yes, it can be done. We just need to decide we want to commit funds, because $2 million is about the limit for a Mass Works grant.
Are there additional comments or questions from the council? Although we did have public, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bob Hagner.
Yeah, Guilford, is it possible, would it be possible to put a very large conduit in, and so that the different vendors or the different companies could put within that larger conduit their own conduits? So they're segregated, but you wouldn't have to dig anything.
That would probably, you're probably talking about putting a tunnel in, a utility tunnel, and then having the conduits, because you have to, if you did a single conduit, it's basically a utility tunnel, but then you have to make sure all your individual conduits for each utility is actually spaced at the appropriate distance apart, so there's no interference between them. So you would end up putting a structure, some type of concrete structure under the intersection. You could do that. That's a little more money and would allow for work in the future without having any type of jeopardy of not being able to pay for your investment. If you just put conduits in, you also have you run into the problem that electrical requirements change year to year, or sometimes month to month sometimes. So if you put the conduit in and haven't got the project approved and you haven't got in the funding process with the electric company, they could change their standards and say you need a bigger conduit. So then you'd have to, what you put in wouldn't be usable. But you could do a larger structure, but it would be quite a large structure.
Okay. While counselors decide if there's any more questions, even though we had public comment for this last time, I'm going to ask if there's anybody who would like to make public comment on this issue, either in the town room or on Zoom. Steve Judge, please enter the room, state your name and where you live.
Hi, this is Steve Judge. I live at 151 Amity Street.
Yes. Please proceed.
Later tonight, you were going to consider a motion referring our request for a parking change to the
Oh,
TSO.
I'm sorry, Steve. This is
Yep.
not general public comment. This is.
Oh,
only
I'm sorry. I'll come back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. Okay. Are there any other people who would like to make public comment with regard to this particular poll hearing and this placement of this poll? Okay, then I'm going to go back to counselors. Pam Rooney.
Thank you. I don't know when the opportunity to weigh in on the design of the roundabout is, but I'm really unclear why there is a stretch of sidewalk on the northwest quadrant of this roundabout. It just seems that it's yet one more pedestrian crossing to worry about. I would rather keep it simple and have only the one coming from across Amity and the one crossing University Drive.
That crossing was requested by UMass because in the future they actually plan to have sidewalks on both sides. So we went ahead and laid it out so we could have sidewalks on both sides of University Drive heading towards campus.
Okay. Andy?
Yeah, the question that I asked, I don't think that you really responded to, and it just may have gotten lost. But the way that drawing is, the line goes from what I'll refer to as the property that was the marijuana dispensary and is being rebuilt. And it seems to be going at a great distance and going pretty straight across the roundabout. And so if that's correct, is that really the best way to do it? Or can it be made a little bit longer so that you don't have something that's really hanging right across a major intersection and so close to the center of the roundabout?
Guilford?
Athena, can I control the mouse?
If you share your screen, you can.
Oh, I don't have the picture you have up.
Tell me where to point.
All right. So if you at the top of the drawing, so the top of the drawing is on the east side of the road or the west side of the road towards Hadley. The line starts there and goes into the vacant field on UMass property, and the pole is set on the vacant field on UMass. And then the line comes, that's the triangle that farther down, Athena, this triangle, but where it says joint pole. So it goes, that's the first line span. And then the second line span goes from there to a pole that's in front of the Jones house, the rental house. And so the poles are on the north side of Amity Street. They're not on the south side of Amity Street. So they kind of go away from the buildings and away from the intersection as much as they can. And then they cross only one lane or one section of the roundabout. They don't cross through the middle.
Andy, did you further questions?
Yes, the way it looks to me is that it's crossing both pieces of that one section.
It is crossing both pieces of that one section, yes. And then the guy wire crosses at Amity Street farther to the east. But that is the best layout to make this work. If we had done it the other way, which was proposed, there would have been 2 guy poles instead of 1 guy pole, and there would have been 2 additional poles instead of the 1 pole.
Any further questions from, yes, Counselor Haneke?
So at the hearing last week, the Eversource spokesman indicated that there were going to be 2 guide poles, but one of them was just not on public property. And now you just said there's only going to be 1. So it sounds like either way, 2 are being added. It's just only one of them's on public property. Is that right?
There's 1 guy pole and there's 1 guy wire. So the pole, that's the triangle, that joint pole 4-3, that has a guy wire off the back of the pole. That's the little, it says the pole with anchor. That's the guy wire. So there's not a pole. It's just the utility pole with a wire off of it. The lower pole at the bottom on the south, or the east end, the east end, that wire goes across the street to a pole, and then there's a guy off that pole to the ground. So there's 1 guy pole, 1 guy wire.
Okay. Are there other questions from the council? Okay. Then I'm going to make a motion and seek a second to close the hearing. Is there a second?
Second, Ryan?
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Anna Devlin Gauthier,
Aye.
Counselor Ette.
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer is an aye. Counselor Haneke,
Aye.
Bob Hegner,
Aye.
Counselor Lord,
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
No.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane. She's stepped out for a moment. Andy Steinberg,
Aye.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis.
Aye.
It is 11 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 temporarily absent. The hearing is closed. We'll come back to the vote on this when we go to action items on the agenda. Thank you. We're going to move now to general public comment. And if you are here to make general public comment and you are in the room, please make sure you have signed up with Athena. She's over here. If you are in the audience, please raise your hand at this time. Athena? 1. We're going to go to the audience, in this case on Zoom. And Steve Judge, please enter the room and state your name and where you live. And this is the right time.
Hi, my name's Steve Judge. I live at 151 Amity, and I'm sorry about the interruption earlier. Tonight, I'm speaking for the 9 residents of 151 Amity Street, the Marsh Street condominiums. Tonight, you will be considering referring our request for a parking change to the TSO committee. I hope that passes and that the committee can review our request. The residents of 151 Amity are asked for a townway parking change. We are asking to delete 1 parking space to establish greater visibility. Our view exiting our drive onto Amity is extremely limited by parking spaces to the right and to the left of our drive. If those spaces are occupied, we have to we have to nose our car out into westbound traffic coming down Amity in order to see around the parked vehicles. This is really difficult. It's an SUV or a pickup truck. We simply can't see around that parked vehicle. Oncoming traffic cannot see us unless we pull out into the lane, causing drivers to either swerve, stop, to let us out. If you delete the left or east side parking space at the end of our drive as we pull out, this would give us a chance to see oncoming traffic. But this isn't just an issue of convenience for us. I asked the police to give me a log of traffic incidents between North Prospect Street and Blue Hill Road on Amity during the last 10 years. In those last 10 years, there's been over 100 traffic incidents on that stretch of road, with the intersection at Amity and Lincoln accounting for 38 of those traffic incidents. What is most concerning to me is that between North Prospect and Lincoln, in the residential driveways, there have been 10 incidents in the last 10 years. 3 at 148, 3 at 56, 1 at 151, 1 at 155, 1 at 140, and 1 at 124 Amity Street. All those give me cause to be concerned about leaving our driveway and having sufficient visibility. We know how important and how precious parking is downtown. We see it every day. We live with it every day. But we hope our safety in exiting our property onto a public street should take priority over this convenience. Deleting one parking space, exiting our property onto a public street should take priority over convenience. Deleting one will give us significantly change the threat faced by the 9 residents of 151 Amity, our families, and our guests. Thank you very much for your consideration. I look forward to working with the committee.
Thank you for your comments and for joining us this evening. Athena?
Vince O'Connor.
Vince O'Connor, please come forward, state your name and where you live.
Vince O'Connor, 175 Summer Street, Apartment 12. I do want to point out that the master plan group study that you received, if you look at all the names, you'll find that all of them are homeowners. And hopefully you'll be equally receptive to a report prepared by tenants of North Amherst. I'm here this evening to speak about political violence. I'd like to make it clear that the life of the man who was murdered by ICE agents in Chicago was of equal value to the life of the man who spent the last 10 years of his life spewing forth hatred toward women, non-Christians, immigrants, gay and lesbian people. It is not political violence to refer to certain immigrants as rapists and murderers. It is political violence to have masked, armed groups of federal employees grab women and girls off of Massachusetts streets and claim that you are ridding the Commonwealth of rapists and murderers. Protected speech is not political violence unless, as it did on January 6th, 2023, lead directly to violent conduct toward congressional staff and police. Political violence is not just attacked on elected officials and their staff and associates. It is the arrest and detention of US citizens by ICE, or the detention of hardworking immigrants who have never even received a parking ticket. The bulk of the political violence occurring at this time in the United States is being committed by ICE toward thousands of hardworking US citizens and those who are immigrants who have done no wrong.
Thank you for joining us. That concludes public comment. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. The items were selected because they were considered to be routine. If a counselor would like to remove an item, please do so after I go through the items. The motion is as follows: to move the following items in the printed motions thereunder and approve those items as a single unit. 8F, approval of extension request for long-term reservation of public way for the Amherst Farmers Market. Waiver of Town Council Rules of Procedure 8.6 for Agenda Item 9A. 9A, 1, approval of the following town manager appointments: Jones Library Building Committee. 11A, approval of the following meeting minutes: September 8th, 2025, regular meeting minutes. Is there a request to remove anything? Seeing none, I seek a second.
Second, DeAngelis.
Thank you. We'll move right to the vote. Counselor Ette.
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer's an aye. Counselor Haneke.
Aye.
Bob Hegner. Counselor Lord. Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Andy Steinberg.
Aye.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis.
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gothier.
Aye.
The consent agenda passes unanimously. The next item that for us, I'm actually considering that perhaps we want to take this item up after the action items. Is there any objection to my changing the order of the agenda?
Are you talking about presentation and discussion items? And taking,
I'm sorry, let me make sure.
just identify what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
I'm sorry, thank you. It's the presentation and discussion of the draft town manager evaluation and process. No objections? Okay, then let's move on to the action items. The first is borrowing authorization request for council order FY 26-09A, an order approving and authorizing borrowing to fund capital project wastewater facilities assessment. This requires a 2/3 vote. As I recall, we do not have this motion on the table. Is that correct? Okay, so the motion is as follows: having held a public forum on September 8th, 2025, posted on the bulletin board for a minimum of 10 days on August 28th, 2025. Did I say September or October? Anyway, it's September 8th. And reviewed by the Finance Committee to approve appropriation and transfer order FY 26-09A, an order approving and authorizing borrowing to fund capital projects wastewater facilities assessment as shown on page 10 of the motion sheet. Is there a second?
Second.
I also want to point out that Guilford Morin has joined us this evening to answer questions that we were not able to get answers to last time. Kathy, I see your hand raised.
That's what I was going to
We're not going to the vote. We're going to a discussion.
okay, because I want to make sure the questions we asked last time, because I feel like the Finance Committee missed a step when we didn't ask about the sole source and why it was so expensive. We understand the need for it. Thanks.
Okay. Guilford, would you like to make a comment at this time or wait for questions?
Let me start with a little summary of how we got to where we are, and then I'll take questions.
Okay.
So, so the Massachusetts has some really detailed and intricate procurement laws, but what they do have is some exemptions in them. And one of the exemptions is for public works projects, design services for public works projects. We use this often. We have several designers we use. We use Tate and Howard. We use CDM Smith. We use Weston and Sampson. We have Fuss and O'Neill doing some work for us. We have Ty and Bond that does work for us. And these are all public works projects, and we tend to kind of keep a consultant on and keep them working the same projects. Ty and Bond does our dam inspections. Tata and Howard is mostly doing our water system and distribution They actually are they designed the Centennial Treatment Plant, and they already got a couple more projects they're working on for us now for the future. The CDM Smith does most of our sewer. They actually designed the sewer treatment plant. They have done various studies throughout the tenure before me and the tenure with me of little plans and little projects, sewer projects, wastewater improvement projects, and so forth. Buston O'Neill has done a bunch of intersection work throughout town, and I think they designed the culverts that are being done on Potwine and Middle Street. So we use several different consultants, and we kind of tend to lean towards what they've been good at and what they have has the most experience in. We do not have to exempt choosing a designer for public works projects. If we want to choose a designer for public works projects, though, we would not do a bid or a proposal. We would do a request for qualifications. And one of the qualifications, of course, would be your experience with a town of our size and a system our size of whatever we're working on. So we tend to just stay with the consultants we have because they've done a good job for us. Although some people do disagree with my assessment, and we move projects forward. It kind of makes the time period shorter for choosing and getting a project started. We chose CDM to start this project for the wastewater master plan because they have done so much recently that they have a very good understanding of what's going on in the plant. They've had people in the plant in the last 18 months, 2 years. They are doing the chlorine study we have appropriated, and they're doing a pH study for us. So they have a lot of background information, which someone we would bring in that's not doing our wastewater would have to get up to speed. So that's why we chose CDM, and that's why we move forward with this. When we originally started this, we thought the process was around $600,000 or $500,000, and that's the number we were using. We had not put together a scope of work yet, and we had not consulted with CDM on what the costs would be. During the budgeting process, the annual budgeting process, there was discussions with the finance department and the DPW, and there was a little worry that that wouldn't be enough money, the 500,000, so it was raised to 750. If you want to reduce it by $100,000, that would fit into the scope of work that we've received recently from CDM Smith. And what we're doing here is basically, if you want to equate it to a school, we're doing the assessment and the feasibility that was done when they first started looking at building Fort River. There was roughly about $2 million spent in that first phase of designing the school. They looked at the programs in the school. They looked at the space needs of the school. They looked at how to make everything work a little better or how they would like it to work. And that's basically what the study you have before you is. It's going to look at the plant. It's going to look at the sewer system. It's going to look at future growth in the area or potential future growth. And it's going to then kind of come up with what we need to invest and develop a capital improvement plan and a management plan. There's actually a management plan part of this as well that we can put in place to move forward. This is also going to give you the numbers that you need to do a more thorough and in-depth rate analysis for sewer rates. We've talked about doing an analysis for water and sewer rates. And these are the numbers you need to plug in for capital to make that process work better and give you a truer number than what people think we have now, which it would be a better number. So that's how we've gotten here. I do have the final task order back from CDM Smith, and if you want to reduce the ask to 650, that is possible and within the scope of what we're proposing to do. Questions?
Kathy.
I'll start out with a question. One of the things that Amy mentioned last week, Guilford, is that Northampton has gone through a similar process. So we asked if there's a comparable. Can we get some sense of what they had to? So I'm going to ask this in two parts. And then you mentioned the school, the designers. When the school designers finished, we had detailed architecture plans for every piece, including where the pipes would go, the electricians in every piece. Our understanding of way this was described, we wouldn't have a full design. We would have the pieces we need to have and the numbers that were like a 10% design or 15. So there's a concern that this is the tip of the iceberg for the design part of it. And yes, the school was extensive, but it really went through literally what the pipes would cost, what the glass would cost, what the steel would cost, and every piece of it. So the final product could go bid out to be built. And we didn't have a sense when we talked about this, that that's what we knew we would see phases, but we weren't sure the design. So it's a two-part question. One, certainly 650 is better than 750. So I have to say that I like that number better. But then the question is, did Northampton spend about that when they were assessing what they needed to do with their system and phasing it in? That's
So
my
the-
first question.
So I haven't got a true answer to the Northampton question yet because it doesn't seem like they did some general upgrades and it wasn't a full facility. They didn't do a full facility plan before they did it. And I'm trying to get clarification on that. We found some other communities that are in the process of doing what we're doing, and I need to reach out to them. Sudbury is one. A couple other communities in Massachusetts that are doing what we're proposing to do now. And we just need to get some more information from them if you want to wait. The analysis with the school is very much true. When the design process was done with the schools, you had done a preliminary design, and then you had done a final design, and then you had your final information. This is how the building projects are laid out that way. A preliminary, which we've done for the DPW, and then you do a final, and then you have your construction drawings and documents, and then you bid. And we'll go through basically the same process with the wastewater plant. We'll have preliminary, we'll choose the pieces we want to do out of that preliminary. We'll do final designs on those pieces, and then we can bid those pieces. Or we can take the whole plan and we can do final design on the whole plan and then do it. So it is very much in the same methodology as doing buildings.
Counselor Haneke.
I am concerned, I agree with Kathy. Finance Committee should have figured out that these were sole sourcing. But I'm concerned that we weren't told that too. And I'm concerned that we do nearly all of our DPW work sole sourcing, it sounds like, given the answers here, the design and the engineering work, over decades. Without looking to see if the prices we're getting are comparable to prices of other towns. It might be fine to do that for a few years, but it seems like a best practice would be every 5 or 6 years, you send everything out to bid again to make sure that you're getting competitive prices. This is the taxpayers' money. And we need the prices competitive, and we don't even know whether 750 or 650 is competitive to other towns. And you're asking us to authorize this because we like working with a certain contractor. I have no doubt that contractor would do a good job, and I don't want to anything implied that they wouldn't, but we have a responsibility to our taxpayers too. I'm happy to hear 650 over 750. I'm not sure that requires amending the appropriation and transfer order, although if there's a tendency to use up all of it, despite quotes that there aren't there, we do need to amend it. I would like to think we wouldn't need to amend it, and that if the quote is 650, that's all that would get spent, even if we've authorized 750. But yeah, so I guess my question's more to the manager. Why are we sole sourcing so many and such large projects versus small projects? You know, 750, $750,000 is not something I would ever think of sole sourcing at all on a routine basis versus a $20,000 or $30,000 project that might seem more reasonable to sole source. So what's your plan going forward regarding all of this and sole sourcing and large projects and all?
Yeah, so under the Uniform Procurement Act, you are allowed for engineering services to exempt it from the procurement process. In the end, and Guilford sort of explained why, because you want to utilize engineers who have already experienced with the work that you're already doing. I think you raise a good point. We could certainly go out for an RFQ for services for this, and this might be a good time to do it because we are looking at a baseline. We would need to construct the request to be very clear about who we want to have do it in terms of someone working on facilities of similar size, having experience with working in facilities of similar size, working in Massachusetts under Massachusetts regulations, all those types of things we would put into an RFQ. And we may get bids. It could be just the same company that bids in. So I think any new company would have to come in and educate themselves about our plant and what work has to be done. So we can certainly take that into consideration in terms of under the procurement process. The habit of the town has been to utilize the relationships that we've established over years with certain specialties. Although we did change with water with Tata and Howard at one point a few years ago, if I recall that correctly, Guilford. We had used a different company at that point previously.
We did.
Yeah. So
we're kind of confusing a few things here. You're never going to bid design services. You're not gonna. It's not the required method that the state says to use. You're going to request an RFQ qualifications. You're never going to see the prices up front. You're going to look at the designers and choose what you think is the best designer. And then you're going to look at the prices after that. So the purpose of the law is to choose your best designer. So same with buildings, that's how they want to do. Architects and engineers, if you do a request for if you do a selection process, you look under Mass General Law, Chapter 7, 38A1 contains procedures for getting a designer. So you would use that as the methodology. So as you talk about the consultants and designers you're hiring, it's not the same process you use when you're actually hiring a contractor to build it. And that sometimes confuses people, but that's kind of what you're doing.
Councilor Ryan.
So what's confusing me is the difference between 750,000 and 650,000. Except I do understand the difference. Or 550,000 or 450,000. I mean, I just asked a simple question. If it turns out to be 650, are we getting something less for that 100,000 that we really could use, but we're going to just forego it? I understand the desire to get the best designer. But we also have to take into consideration that the folks are paying for this. It's not funny money, it's real money. And there's $100,000 is real $100,000. So I'd feel a lot better working or approving a number that seemed to have some basis in what we think is a reasonable amount. But it sounds like this is like a ballpark figure where you're thinking that it's probably going to come in less, but we don't know. And we could make it 650. And the thought seems to be that maybe it'll come in at 650 or 600. I don't know. I just struggle approving a number that is basically just, a guesstimate.
It's an estimate. It is an estimate, but it's based on judgment from what other people have done and what we've seen done around. Yes, I can't tell you which study we used from doing it. I cannot tell you. Last time we did one of these, it was in the $300,000 range, and it was not a full study. And that was about 10 years ago. And that's where the 500,000 came from, that based on doing it about 10 years ago. In the discussions before, we talked about in the discussions we had when we were setting the budget between the Finance Committee and Public Works, there was concern that it wasn't enough. So 750 was the number proposed to go in the budget. And that's what the everything was based on. I got the final task order back from CDM Smith, and I do know the number. The number is around 650. It's a little less than 650. So if you want to lower it to 650, that would be close to what the task order is. And I do understand people saying, I'm sorry, this is there's been some talk outside the council and in other places. No one in the Public Works Department has any well, I won't say that. I have no financial interest in any of the consultants we use. I don't get lunches from them. They don't take me to conferences. They don't do anything. I get nothing from this. I do my best, and my staff does their best to get the prices we can get and to make the project work the best it can. And knowing the fact that Amherst is averse to spending money. No one in Amherst wants to spend money. As I sit in my building that leaks on us all the time, and we try to make a project that's going to work, and I get asked these questions, we work really hard to make this work, even though no one wants to spend money on the projects we need to do. I'm sorry. I just had to say that. I'm done. I'm not going to say it again. I apologize if I hurt. I must apologize for it, but that's kind of how we feel. Sorry.
So if I can just say, as a counselor, none of it, we're not casting aspersions on anyone or you or any of your staff. We're just trying to be able to explain to our constituents an expenditure that's a fairly large expenditure. When it's a $40,000, $50,000 amount, that's not Trump change, but this is $750,000. And it doesn't seem to be an unreasonable request. And some of the things you're saying this evening are helping me at least understand better, and I appreciate that. But understand last week, we had nothing. We just had a $750,000 request, and we didn't really have any clarity as to why it was that amount or what the scope of work was and why it was only a single source. There weren't really any answers forthcoming. We're getting a better sense tonight, and I appreciate that. But I have to repeat what Councilor Haneke said, which is ultimately, at least I like to think we represent the interests of the taxpayers and the ratepayers, and we need to ask these questions. We ask them respectfully. I have no insinuations or any suggestions of that sort about you or your staff. It's just trying to understand the size of the amount. And now what you're saying tonight is it looks like, in fact, it's 650. And you can explain, as you just started to do, why we work with this group and why the number is about what it is. And given your experience, you think that it's a reasonable amount, given the complexity of this project. This is all helpful to me, but I'm hearing it tonight for the first time. And I assume my colleagues are hearing it for the first time tonight. So that's why we're asking these questions, and that's why it's helpful getting these responses. Anyway, that's what I have to say.
Councillor Ete.
So I have very limited experience with projects. So this is a more general question about the sole sourcing. I believe from listening to you and the manager, 3 reasons why one may want to sole source is because of the shortened time in not having some kind of competition. Also, there's expertise that not all interested parties may have, and that the town may be interested in maintaining relationships with some of these different companies. I was wondering, are there any other reasons why the town would decide to sole source for a project like this?
It's primarily the expertise that consultant brings to the table for doing the project. Yeah, we've worked with them. They know the facility. They have experience in the facility. They have experience in what's going on. And to bring another company on to start that process over again does take more time. So it is time saving, and it's just a using of the experience that we've created over the years to bring the project forward.
Thank you.
Guilford, this is a question akin to this discussion. Um, DPW is a complex organization. It's got 8 or 9 different units and they do various other different things. So when you go out with an RFQ, are you going out specific to things like roads or engineering, or in this case, water, wastewater and sewer? I assume you can't go out with a general RFQ for everything that DPW might need. And then I have a follow-on question.
When we actually do an RFQ, we target the need for that specific point. So if we want to do a wastewater plan, a water plan, if we want to design roundabout intersections, or if we want to design a new lighting system for the town streetlights, we would do a RFQ and target it towards what we're looking for.
Okay. So my next question is, how often do you go out for the general RFQ process? And how do you build your list for who you're soliciting from?
So we go out, we've done it very rarely, because when we have a problem, we usually then we usually do it at that point. And we've only had a couple of problems throughout my time here. We had a disagreement with a consultant, and we changed consultants on that one. And other times we did the Atkins Corner roundabout project was a RFQ. We did a RFQ process for the War Memorial Pool. That was a designer, and there's no exemption for buildings, building designers. So if it's a building, we tend to do an RFQ, and the others we tend to stay pretty much with the teams we've built and keep using them until there's a reason to not use them anymore.
Thank you. Are there any other Kathy?
I'll just come back. If I think I heard you say you were going out to look at some other cities, towns, whatever they call themselves, with comparable systems. And I think the comfort level of all of us would be a lot higher if we just knew a few. And as I said, 650 sounds better to me than 750. It is 100,000 less. And then my last point is I think long-term relationships make a lot of sense. So I didn't mean to question that. I mean, one of the Japanese car manufacturers, ways they completely took our lunch for a while was long-term relationships, so that they each were designing to fit their needs and they really got to know each other. So this is we're also just questioning the level of the expense, and whether in this case, as Freke asked or Councilor Ate asked, that there's enough in-depth knowledge already of what is really an ancient system. I mean, we potentially are going to throw out a lot of what we're now doing based on what you told us during finance, the process side of it, as well as the big machinery side of it. So you need to make sure you have someone who knows the cutting edge pieces of it, not just the 1979 piece of it. So it's trying to get to some level of comfort that you've got the right team and they're not overcharging us. I think that's what we're asking.
Bob Hegner.
Yeah, Guilford, I wanted to ask or bring up another issue that hasn't really been raised, which is if we were to bring on a different contractor, a consultant, they would presumably need time from you and your staff in order to get up to speed on the particulars of our wastewater treatment plant. How much time, how much staff time would it take to bring some new person on board, or new team on board, versus someone who's already familiar with the system?
It depends on who you're bringing on board. The other issue that's going on throughout the industry in the consulting world and the municipal world is people are retiring. Young people are leaving more frequently. So you still have even if we use some of our consultants we've had on staff, we still end up as sometimes having to re-educate them because of a loss of a key member of their team. So it does happen with both ends. It probably takes longer, twice as long to do it with a complete new team, because if it's a complete new team, they have to learn our finance side of how to expect that we bill, how we take their billing, how we process all these things. We have to do it with they're teaching them how the system operates or what we're trying to do and how we interact with them and how we would interact in the construction process, which is Amherst actually interacts differently in the construction process than some towns. We take on more of the management and oversight role. A lot of consultants are not comfortable with that, and they have to figure out what we're doing and be more comfortable. So it depends on who you're bringing in, but it can sometimes double the amount of time to get things going.
Counselor Haneke.
I have a motion to amend to make.
Okay, please.
I move to amend the appropriation and borrowing authorization order FY 26-09A on page 10 of the motion sheet by deleting $750,000 and replacing it with $650,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
We're going to vote on the amendment first, and then we're going to go up. Are there any questions about the amendment? Seeing none, we're going to vote on the amendment, okay? And, okay,
Mandy has her hand up. Did you want to speak to your motion?
yes,
I think it's self-evident.
thank you. Okay. Okay, the amendment is to lower the price from 750 to 650. We'll begin the vote with Lynn Griesmer. I'm an aye. Counselor Haneke.
Aye.
Bob Hegner.
Aye.
Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Andy Steinberg.
Aye.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis.
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gothier.
Aye.
Counselor Ette.
Aye.
Are we ready to move to the full motion? Seeing no hands, I'm going to go to the full motion. In this case, we'll begin. That is the motion as we have now just amended it. Okay. Counselor Haneke.
Aye.
Bob Hegner.
Aye.
Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Andy Steinberg.
Aye.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis.
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gothier.
Aye.
Counselor Ette.
Aye.
And Lynn Griesmer is an aye. It is unanimous. Thank you. We're going to do one more and then take a break because we have, go for it here. The next motion is to approve the petition for joint or identical pole locations to relocate jointly owned pole 4/3 and install one jointly owned pole as indicated on the plan marked 19992416-80260821. Is there a second?
Second, Ryan.
Is there any other questions or comments? You're going to move. I'm sorry, Counselor Haneke.
I don't like that we're being forced essentially into this position. And I just want to state that I'm going to vote for it because this roundabout is extremely important to the town and the grant. But I think in the future, we need to be moving these underground and the council should be consulted before the town makes a decision on whether to propose without moving poles underground.
Anna?
I echo what Mandy just said, and I think one of the things that stuck out, Guilford, about what you shared today was the sort of the minimum distance that tends to be required for the companies to justify putting those poles underground or to agree to do that. And I would love to kind of, not right now, but I would love to poke at that a little bit more, because for me, that feels like you're adding a whole, not you, but like one, it would be adding a whole other big capital project just to bury lines when we're trying to find efficiencies by doing this piece by piece. So again, I also don't love that we have to say yes to this because of how this project has been presented, and because of the grant funding that we don't want to lose. But I would really love to figure out how we as a council can advocate on our town's behalf with Eversource to say, look, a half mile is just too long to have that be the minimum distance for burying these lines, and advocate for doing those expenditures in smaller chunks with these projects that are already happening. I don't know how to get that conversation started. It's something, but I'm naming it here that I'd love to figure that out.
I agree with what the previous two counselors have said. What has really struck me during this conversation is that we're really at the mercy of the utility companies. And the reality is that I understand the difficulty of getting 8 different utilities to agree, but at what point do we take control of the skies, of the poles, of the landscape of our town, and do it in a way that we don't always carry the burden of the cost? Guilford, you have your hand up. Did you want to say anything, Guilford?
Yes, sorry, I was on mute. Eversource is more than willing to sit down with the town and go through what you think are the key areas and where you think you're going next with our projects to do that. And they're more, they've said that multiple times. They're happy to sit down with the town and go through what we think we want to do next. And then we can work on trying to how to figure out how to fund that and make that all come together. The one the one issue we're all going to run into, Eversource and the town, is that as we push for net zero and more electric utilities in our houses, more electric appliances, more less oil and less natural gas, Eversource is pushing to upgrade their system, and they have places they have to definitely go to, and we need to we both need to kind of fit into that little niche. Like the work on College Street was done solely because of the buildings in downtown. They needed to send more power, and they needed a bigger duct bank. So they installed that duct bank, and they've also agreed to work with us if we want to underground the utilities on College Street all the way down to the railroad bridge. So they're willing to talk to us, and they're willing to come to the table. We just have to figure out who we want to have and how we want to adjust the conversation.
Thank you. Bob Hagner.
Yeah, I'm going to support this project, but Guilford, I would like to see you, if it's feasible, to explore the feasibility of putting in some sort of utility tunnel ahead of time so that we're sort of pre-positioned to move the utilities underground. I don't know if it fit within the budget or how much it would cost extra, but if it's feasible, I would like to see that.
Anna?
Yeah, so when you say sit down with the town, is that something that we should be putting in the town manager goals to say, look, this is a priority for when we write those goals, to say, look, this is a priority for next year, that we want to have a plan in place to meet with the utility and talk about where the town is going in terms of our construction. Oops, sorry, as well as where the utility anticipates going with increased demand on its system. And I know that's a whole other, it's not just a can of worms, like the utilities usage is like a whole other bucket of worms. But how do we get to that point, right? Like, is that, it seems to me that that would be something that the town manager would work with you on in the executive end, and that we should put it in the town manager goals. Does that seem appropriate in your mind? Or is there a different track where you're like, no, the 13 of you should tackle the utility? Because I'm not going to advocate for that direction.
No, a smaller group is better, but then there does have to be some consensus about what the goal is. What the goal is. Is it 100% underground? Is it the Do you want to have the key village centers underground and the downtown underground, or do you want to start in the downtown and work your way out? How do you want to do it? Would be a good thing to know is what the preferred method is. Power only comes into the town basically in two ends, and then if those are the key ends, they come in and work from those ends. Actually, three ends. That would be helpful to set the priorities, which way to go. But that might be a subcommittee of that you might want. One of the committees could look at it and work with us to say these are the guidelines we want to do, and then we can sit down and talk to the utilities more. And the utilities could come in and talk to the subcommittee if you wanted to do it that way.
Thank you. Yeah, after the last meeting, I spent a little too long on the internet looking up information about burying lines, and there's a lot out there about the efficiency, the cost effectiveness of burying lines, and kind of what is the ratio or what's the cost benefit of the number of storms versus the cost to bury. And there was a study done on the entirety of New York State, and one of the really interesting things that they found, sorry, this is a quick interesting thing. One of the interesting things that they found was it's much less cost effective to do it in more rural areas because you have to span further distances with a lot of construction and burying, but that it is more cost effective to do it in places like downtown, right? Or in New York, like New York City. So I do think that it's worth exploring to figure out, kind of like you said, the almost like a heat map of where to prioritize the burying of said lines. Okay,
This-
thank you.
This might be something that TSO puts in its carryover memo as a future possibility for discussion. Andy.
Yeah, I think that my big disappointment with this was that we didn't think of it at the beginning of the process, but only came to it at the end of the process. And I think that put a hardship on everybody, including our staff, Guilford, all of the people at DPW. I hope that having had this discussion, that we now understand that when we are digging up a street, it's kind of like when you're digging up a street, you try and look at sewer lines or look at water lines to make sure that you don't have to do it twice. That when we dig up a street for major purposes like this, that we at least pause to think about utility in the same way. And that's what I would encourage for the future, which is really not, really something that requires sensitivity at the point where there's the recognition that we are digging up the street and that putting in infrastructure underground can happen more easily than if we try to do it at another time. So thank you.
Thank you. Pam?
Yeah, thanks. Guilford asked, where should we focus such efforts? And I would say key intersections and development zones. And if Amity Street roundabout isn't a key intersection, I don't know which is. So I echo everyone's concern that this didn't get incorporated. There are standard utility tunnels, designs. There is a major tunnel that goes up North Pleasant Street through the UMass campus. It takes power and Comcast and whatever all the way up to Vermont. So it certainly can be done. Let's plan ahead as often as we can and get some partnership. For instance, in this situation, we have a development putting in a big new building with an extra floor because it's a university overlay drive. And perhaps that developer as an incentive to the town could help carry some of the cost of putting utilities underground. It would certainly make the look and feel of that building much nicer. So these are the kinds of opportunities I think that we are faced with. Thanks.
Pat?
Yeah, I've been listening to what we've been saying as counselors, and we're missing one important thing that Guilford, you blurted out, but which is critically important, that the men and women in the DPW work in a horrible building And I would love to see the passion from this council to do something about that. As much as we have passion about all these other things that are important, but are they as important as the people who work for us? And so when I hear all this conversation about money and design and where things need to go, I know that Beth sits at a desk and the ceiling is leaking on her. I know Mr. Brace is struggling with leaks in his department. And we don't do any planning about that. So I would like to see this council be a little bit more effective on a day-to-day level for the DPW.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, we're going to move to the vote. This is the vote on the Eversource petition for pole relocation and placement at University Drive and Amity Street intersection. Bob Hegner.
Aye.
Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Andy Steinberg.
Aye.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis.
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gothier.
Aye.
Counselor Ette.
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer's an aye. Counselor Haneke.
Aye.
It is unanimous. We're going to take a 5-minute break and reconvene at 8:26. Please turn off your mics as well as your cameras and turn them back on when you come back. As you return, please turn your videos back on. We're going to start promptly at 8:26.
I love having the flag on everybody. I won't take your.
All right, we're going to start back. We're moving on to the Marsh House Condominium Homeowners Association request to eliminate one parking space adjacent to their driveway. This is a referral to TSO. I'm going to read the motion, and it's to refer to the Town Services and Outreach Committee, the 151 Amity Street Homeowners Association traffic safety request to remove the parking space adjacent to the driveway to the east. Is there a second?
Second, Rooney.
Okay. We have,
You use the mic, so you're more official.
I'm going to quickly turn to Jennifer, who submitted a piece, and it's in your packet. And Jennifer, please go ahead.
Thank you, Lynn. So I don't want to repeat what Mr. Judge, I think, gave a very, detailed but brief overview. We did receive, the council, I believe, on June 4th, we all received an email from the Homeowners Association at 151 Amity expressing the concern about traffic safety and the request to remove this one space adjacent to their driveway to the east. As their district counselors, Pam and I had received an email as well. And my, first response was if they could, if they could, reach out to the police department and, get a sense of, not just there, of course, they know that it feels unsafe and that they can't see around the parked cars until they're actually out in traffic. They don't know traffic if a car is coming until they're out in traffic. But if they could also, get information about traffic incidents on the street, and if there was any confirmation that what they were sensing was very dangerous was in fact true. And I think they were surprised. I was surprised to see that high a traffic incident rate of 100 over the past 10 years. That's, 10 a year. I know on my street, we don't have accidents that even approach that. And that, I think they said 38 of those accidents were on their block. I did then confer with the town manager, since it was, I hesitated to bring to the council, you're very busy, the request to delete one parking space. And was there any way that that could be handled administratively, even though it's, part of the public way? And because it's part of the public way, Athena said, no, we did have to bring it to the council. Just as an aside, in my comments to the Charter Review Committee, that's, part of what I asked if they could look at, if there was some way that we, when it's one parking space in the whole town, is that something that could be handled apart from the council? But for now, it can't. So we're just asking if it could be referred to TSO, and perhaps TSO could also consider if both removing the space, but I don't know if it would be helpful. Again, this would be part of what TSO would investigate. If the parking spaces on either side of the driveway could start a little, they really go right up to the curb cut. If they could be maybe pushed a little further back from the curb cut, so there was more room to, as Mr. Judge said, nose out into traffic before you're just in traffic. So that is the request for the referral, if there's any questions.
Counselor Haneke?
I'm going to vote to refer, but I would like TSO to, speak to DPW, but speak to the police department about traffic accidents in town. I think Amity and Lincoln going west had 31 incidents, but that's not in front of this driveway. That's a block away, slightly different, not caused by trying to get out of this driveway. Hold on. I just don't know how to interpret this data when it says that intersection, right? And what I would like TSO to sort of discuss and think about is what accident rate requires action. The public commenter said 10 accidents in front of this particular driveway in 10 years. That's one a year. And that's not to minimize one a year, but I'm sure there are many places that have one accident a year in our town. And so I would like TSO to start thinking about at what level is action needed, appropriate, and all of that, and think about that as you're thinking about, do we need to do anything here for one accident a year? Is one accident enough? Is 4 accidents enough? Have a discussion on that. That's all I'm asking. It's one of the reasons I will vote to refer.
Kathy?
I think Jennifer also raised a second question, saying if we're not talking about just this one space, should we safety people in town be saying how far away from an exit driveway should the first parking place start? That most of us, the road I live on has no parking on the street, so I never encounter this problem where people aren't allowed to, it's a 45-mile-an-hour thing. It's a state road. So we don't encounter this, and so there are no parking spaces, period. But it sounds like it's very close. So maybe looking at, and that would be townwide, Mandy, not just here, but just trying to think how far away from an exit where a lot of cars are coming out should the first car be parked so that to do visibility. And I don't know how many instances we have like this. Thanks.
Bob?
Yeah, I have one question and I have a comment. The question is this a metered parking space or is the permitted parking? So we're not talking about dollars here at all because people, people can find other places to park.
Right.
But as someone who drives along Belchertown Road almost every day, where people come out of Cumberland Farms, and if you're heading towards Belchertown, they have to nose out into the road in order to see the cars coming around the curve, and it's really dangerous. I've mentioned this before in this venue. It's very dangerous, and an accident, a bad accident, is going to happen sooner or later. So I support any effort that reduces that kind of risk.
Andy?
Yes, certainly TSO will do the best we can. There is a complication that I think we need to talk with our professional staff within the town about, because it came up with the Lincoln Avenue discussion too. And that is, if you are to ban parking within a certain distance of driveways, do you have to do some kind of demarcation at each driveway? And how do you notify the parking people who are parking where the no parking is permitted? So it is something that I think that the committee is going to have to explore as we have this discussion and report back to you. I guess my other observation, but we'll talk about that at a different meeting, is that I think that there's a benefit to having a transportation and parking commission if you can put all of those key players who we're talking about, the police department and TPW, some counselors, and other citizens who are on the committee together in one place, I think it will be a efficient process.
Pam?
Thank you. I also support referring this to TSO. I was also going to mention Lincoln. The situation on Lincoln was such that there was a dangerous lack of visibility of oncoming traffic. The condition coming out of driveways and the condition on Amity Street is exacerbated by the volume of traffic and the speed of traffic of folks coming out of town center down the hill. So I think this is definitely sort of a mini safety zone. I do believe that the parking spaces along that stretch of Amity are striped. They're painted. So there's an ability to adjust them perhaps would be an easier solution. Thank you.
Jennifer?
I was going to say, that was my very comment, that they are marked because it's more of a commercial street on Amity. So it would be, it's not like they'd have to paint them red and then enforce them. They just have to move where the parking space begins.
Okay. We're going to move to a vote. We're going to start with Counselor Lord,
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Andy Steinberg,
Aye.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis,
Aye.
Eleanor Devlin Gothier,
Aye.
Counselor Ette,
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer's aye, Counselor Haneke,
Aye.
Bob Hagner.
Aye.
It's unanimous. The next motion is to authorize the president to sign the letter to the UMass Student Government Association in support of its PVTA proposal on behalf of the town council. Is there a second?
Second, Ryan.
Okay. Counselor Ryan, this is been brought forward by you. Would you please speak to it?
I'd be happy to, Lynn, thank you. First, I'd like to acknowledge the presence. This young man is from the SGA. His name is Josh Gatto. He's the Secretary for External Affairs, and he's been here almost the entire evening. And so I think he should get some kind of award or recognition. This came to our attention, to my attention many months ago. The SGA approached me and asked if the council would be interested in writing a letter of endorsement for a initiative that they were working on related to PVTA service, both on campus and off campus. And I think particularly the off-campus element is the element that I think would be of most interest to us. And so as a result of back and forth, eventually a draft letter has been crafted and it's in your packet, which essentially is addressed to the SGA, because at this point I believe they're not ready to go to the PVTA. They're still getting all their ducks in order. And one of those ducks is getting as many towns and cities in the region to offer their support. So this letter, were it to be approved, if we allow the president to go forward, would go to the SGA and express our support for their initiative that is yet to be presented to the PVTA. As I said, the initiative has two essential components. They're mentioned here in the letter briefly. There's a lot more detail, but I think the part that is of interest, particularly to us, has to do with off-campus service and the desire to expand it in the northern corridor between Amherst and Greenfield, also serving the communities of Deerfield, Montague, and Leverett. A number of strong reasons were given, not the least of which is that it would be a benefit to the Greenfield Community College community, many of whom seek to be engaged in the 5 colleges, including UMass. And also there are students who live in that corridor or might want to live in that corridor. And by providing more frequent and reliable service, this would be a benefit to them. And also perhaps eventually relieve some of the housing crisis here in Amherst. It also would be a benefit to those communities. And so that is the basic gist of what this is doing. At this stage is simply our expressing our support for their initiative, which, as I said, is yet to be brought to the PVTA.
Are there any questions from the council? Seeing none, we're moving to a vote. Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Andy Steinberg,
Aye.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Alicia Walker. I'm
Yeah.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Uh,
Aye.
Pat DeAngelis. Thank you. Anna Devlin Gothier,
Aye.
Counselor Ette,
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer is an aye. Counselor Haneke.
Aye.
Bob Hegner,
Aye.
Counselor Lord.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Maybe you could get one credit for spending all this time with us tonight. If you need somebody to sign that, I had some adjunct status at one point, okay? There you go. Good point. The next motion is to authorize the president to sign the petition regarding the public school fiscal crisis on behalf of the town council. Is there a second?
Second, DeAngelis.
This was sent to us by school committee member Deb Leonard. Any counselor is always welcome to sign individually. That's your decision. This would be on behalf of the council. Since we've all received the letter, it's in your packet, I'm not going to go into it. Are there any questions or comments? Then seeing none, we'll begin the vote. Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Andy Steinberg,
Aye.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis,
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gothier,
Aye.
Counselor Ette,
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer is an aye. Counselor Haneke,
Aye.
Bob Hegner,
Aye.
Counselor Lord,
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
It's unanimous. We are finished with the action items, and so we will move on to, and we did appointments, and so we are now going to go to the discussion of the town manager evaluation and process. We sent this to you last week, and Anna Devlin Gothier, who's chair of GOL, is here to take notes along with the rest of us on GOL. So the floor is open for your comments. Bob Hegner.
Yeah, Anna, this is a really good evaluation format. I like it. The only thing I would suggest is there be a way to indicate it's possible that the town manager could not meet a specific goal because of circumstances beyond his control. And if you could note that somewhere, it could be maybe a choice, A, B, C, D, E choice or something else. But just something where you could indicate that, in your opinion, the town manager was not at fault for not making that particular goal.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Counselor Haneke.
So there's an option which I appreciate of not able to judge not enough information for all of the charter A through W, I think it is X. I don't know how many we listed. I like that there's that option, but you read some of these and we have no involvement in many of them, yet I just assume they get done. And I feel bad putting a not able to judge, even a not enough information when I kind of think they were done. I mean, you look at some of these and you're like signing the contracts. I don't really have direct knowledge that it's been done, but I have indirect knowledge that it's getting done, but I'm not sure what I'd actually answer with these four options. So I don't know whether that NA needs an additional descriptor too, or something. Because I kind of want something that says, I assume he did it all, based on what I've seen going on in town, yet I don't have direct information. So I don't know how you deal with that, but I just thought I'd mention it.
Jennifer.
Yes, I like that the town manager responsibilities that are in the charter are listed because we do lose sight that in addition to the goals we give, all that is getting done. And I agree with Counselor Handicke. I'm not necessarily sure how we would know that it's been done, but I figure the fact that the ship of state is moving along, that it's getting done. I think it should be in the evaluation, all those other items that our staff is dealing with.
Counselor Ryan?
So I would like to see an evaluation that that issue doesn't arise at all, that what we're evaluating the manager on are actually things that we can or cannot, we can measure. And if we can't, why are they there at all? So I think that's for future consideration as we think about what the goals are going to be for the next term. We, first of all, again, we make this plea every year. Hopefully we'll reduce them in number. And secondly, given this, I think, excellent direction that we're going in terms of evaluation, that we ask ourselves, when we put a goal in, is this actually something that we can actually evaluate him on? If we can't, then it shouldn't be there at all.
Anna, did you want to say something to that?
I did. And George, any snarkiness is not at you. Well, 90% not at you. All right. I hear you on the point about something shouldn't be on the evaluation that we can't evaluate, but I think that's on us. I don't think that's on Paul. And so I think that what, in my mind, where we should go then is we need to make sure that when we're asking Paul for his self-reflection or self-evaluation, that we are asking him to speak to these things, or that we're asking them throughout the year. Like, I think that this is also necessitating a behavior change on our part of like, hey, how many of us could have named A through X of the town manager's responsibilities? And are we, it's X. And are we asking, is it? Now I'm not sure. Now I'm doubting myself. Anyway, are we asking those questions? So I think that I hear you. I don't want to, I don't think we should pick and choose what's on the what's in the evaluation. And I don't know if that's what you were insinuating, but we should have all of the job responsibilities in there, but we need a better way of asking about them throughout the year, in my opinion. What I don't think would be appropriate is for this council to say, these are the elements of the town manager's job description that we want to evaluate, but do all of them. We're just only going to evaluate this set number that we want.
Kathy?
The 4-3-2-1 scale, every once in a while, I think works. And then there are things where I just don't think it works. So I'll give you an example. Prepare and submit an annual budget and a capital improvement plan and a forecast. It either happened or it didn't happen. I mean, we might not like the results, but he either did or didn't do those things. So this is happened, didn't happen. And they're signed all bonds and notes for borrowing money. Well, since he's the only one who can sign them, I'm assuming someone else isn't. So there's just a few. I understand what you were doing. You were going through all the tasks in the charter, but some of these are on-offs. It happened or it didn't happen. So I worry about trying to do minimally met. What does that mean? A couple of bonds were never signed and we borrowed money, so I'm just giving some odd examples. The purchasing supplies and materials. Unless someone complains to us, we wouldn't know whether he's purchased them. So I would eliminate some of these and stay with the ones that are more an overarching sense. And I can be more specific once I go through them. So the effort to go to everything that was in the charter, I think, does more than we need to do here. That's my view of some of the sub pieces, but some of the big pieces, I think we could have a judgment on them.
Counselor Ete?
Again, Anna, I'd like to thank you for this work that you've done. Filling this out felt much more luxurious than the tension and fear that I feel when I actually have to do the manager evaluation. I think what we've heard from the different councillors is true, but something we can take away is that the information that is gotten from this would be helpful both to the town manager and to the council, and so there may not be need to preempt what the answers for these particular questions would be until at least for 1 year we try it out and then see. So for example, W, the final one, perform such other duties as necessary or as may be assigned by this charter or by vote of the town council. 4, 3, 2, 1. I fill that out as not available. Perhaps after we've done this and we're able to tabulate and we see that for all the councillors, there's a huge number that have that as non-available, that's something we can bring to the town manager, ask his opinion, what more do we need to know? So I think there is data that can be gleaned from this, and I really appreciate this work. Thank you.
Got all that, Anna? Do you want to go ahead?
No, if you have thoughts, I have a couple of responses and then I will I did write down everybody's
Okay.
notes.
I do have a comment, but Paul, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I think there are two things in my reading of it that might be a challenge. One is the difference between goal was partially met or partial progress was made versus goal was unfinished, which means most or all aspects were not achieved or the goal was not started. So not started is clear, but the difference between partial progress and all aspects not achieved, or most aspects not achieved, it seems like that it's a judgment call. Which one where would you put your number 2 or 1? So I think that's just a wording clarification you might want to address. The second thing I sort of fear is people like to quantify. They want to put a grade. So when you have a 3, 2, 1, as opposed to like just circles that people could punch, they will say, oh, there are 27 questions. The maximum number of points is 3 or 4 out of a possible 114 points. He got 97, and then convert that into a percentage. People will be inclined to do that kind of math. So if that's what your intention is, that's fine. But I think that if you say NA, there are no points given for a thing that could potentially have given 4 points. So if we're going to be in this quantification mode, which I think people gravitate to, especially our press, I think just be aware of what that might imply. So I mean, you could also just have circles there instead of numbers, unless you want it to be additive in some way. And if it's additive, then to get 0 for the goal was deprioritized by the council, it doesn't seem very fair. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Okay.
So, first of all, thank you all for looking at this, taking the time, et cetera. One of the things that strikes me, first of all, I have always felt that we were missing something when we didn't refer to the charter. So I'm torn over that issue. So I actually like it in there. As the person this year, at least, that will have to write up what we get back, I'm having a nightmare envisioning what that will look like. But I'm working on it because I really appreciate what Anna has done. One of the things that I think GOL is going to have to grapple with, Paul, just hold on to your seat when I say this. Do we expect the town manager in his self-evaluation to speak to every one of these? And do we expect him to speak to them in quantifiable terms? So in other words, I signed this many whatevers, whatever. And so the nightmare continues for me. At the same time, I'm open to anything besides what we've been doing, because what we've been doing has been driving me nuts. Okay, I'm done. Kathy, I think you were next, unless Anna, you want to go ahead.
If that's okay, I'd love to just share
Please.
a couple of thoughts. Okay, so I cannot stand behind a town manager evaluation that only includes parts of the town manager's job. I think it is absolutely inappropriate for this body to pick and choose items from the charter's description of the town manager's role to put in the evaluation. I can't stand behind that. I will vote against my own evaluation. It is on us to learn the answers. I don't think that needs to be entirely in the town manager's written self-evaluation. I think that we could have a conversation with the town manager in this room where we ask questions on things that we're not clear on. In terms of the scale, yes, there are some items that are yes or no, and in those instances, you'd ignore the middle two, and you'd either pick you did it or didn't do it. I think that that's where we have to use a bit of our logic and common sense here in looking at those scales. I think that, Paul, I want to clarify that NA wouldn't be counted. That like if we did do an average, let me back up. The reason why I included the numbers initially was because of the way that in the past the counselor evaluations had been quantified and put together. There's no reason why we have to continue doing that. That was why those numbers are in there. Personally, I prefer to not have numbers because just like you said, it feels like a grade, and I don't love that. That said, if we remove the numbers, we just need to figure out how we're going to present and congeal is not the word, consolidate the information into one report, which we can do. We can definitely figure that out. But I did want to clarify that if someone puts NA, they would be removed from the average. Like they would not be, it would be 4 people said 3, 2 people said 2, even if, 8 people responded. If 2 people said NA, it's not a 0 in that sense. It's just, yeah. And I think that does clarify, but I absolutely, I'm bringing all of this to GOL, but I think the conversation about numbers or no numbers is very key. Lynn, I don't think that it is helpful. I think you were saying the same thing, to have the town manager fill out a self-evaluation that speaks to every single item in a quantifiable way. However, I do think that this council should consider the town manager does a written self-evaluation, which is very helpful, but can we have a meeting where we set aside an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, and ask the questions that we want to ask going into this self-evaluation? So we can say, hey, I really am unclear about this, and Paul doesn't need to come with quantifiable, like we're not expecting Paul to be able to pull all the data at a drop of a hat, but he can at least speak to that area of the evaluation going into it so that we feel informed and ready. And it can be after we get the self-evaluation so that we can get questions answered there, but that could absolutely be part of this process.
Thank you. Paul, did you want to say something else? Okay, Kathy?
Okay. 2 comments, and then the first one, I don't know where I would go with it. I still think we have way too many goals. This is, it's like everyone got the 13 of us, many of us got one of the ones we really liked on the list. And there was, it was like, if I said to people, I can hire 1 new person next year, and you said, but I want 5. And I said, but I can only do 1. Which one do you want? And then we said, we want all 5. Here they are. So I think that it reads like that. So that's just a comment. If this could be pared down at all, it would be great. I just think it's too big a menu. And we, the council, have to live within a budget. So we can't bust the budget with our goals. So we have to think of that. So I would, as I said on the first, I think the general job, you're right, Anna, bringing something, this is what he's supposed to do, and so a few of these just seem like you don't need to put them there or they're yes, nos. The one that's missing is keep the town fiscally healthy. It's just not there anywhere. So submitting a budget, submitting a capital plan, X, Y, and Z, but 6 years ago, we had something about financial management of the town. I just don't see it anywhere. So I don't know where it goes. I just don't see it anywhere. And I don't even know how he would word it. But since we expect him to do that, and he reports a lot on us, so just think of where that might go into a simple piece. And we used to all give him top marks on that while marking them down on the 10 things that we couldn't afford to do that weren't done is another way I think of some of our goals, that we've got unaffordable goals. And maybe 10 years from now, we'll get some of them done. So this comes out of GOL, and I realize what you've done is anyone who had a goal, unless someone hated it, it went on the list. So I would never grade my teachers this way. So I just think it's too big a list.
Counselor Ette?
I think there's room to shrink some of the goals, but I'd still like to emphasize that this is an opportunity to educate ourselves and also educate the public. I read the charter before running, but I'll also say that even after reading the charter, there was so much that I didn't know coming into the council. And that's partially why the few times I've had to review the town manager, it's really scary. And what I see here is something that has some clarity, where there will be points of convergence, which we can skip in any reports, and maybe points of divergence where it'll be an opportunity for the council to educate the public and the town manager to educate the council. And so we should look forward to that. But I also agree that there may be room to shrink some of what we have now.
Counselor Haneke?
So I want to echo that I would not expect the manager to necessarily address all of these, and certainly not with specific numbers. Like, no, a nightmare for you, a nightmare for us. No, I would not expect that. I guess I'm still struggling with, I would support getting rid of the numbers and just creating, I don't know, some, if you need titles for them, titles, but if not, just, leave the descriptions, and that's what we do. So a couple comments, there are actually X and you put U in twice, which is why the document only shows W, which is why I was confused. So, because I was like, I swear there were X, but the documents went to W. They're all there, but U's listed twice. And I'm going to give an example of U, which is attend and participate in not fewer than 3 public forums each year addressing the 3 that are required by the charter, one of which is school matters, is provided in section 4.2E. I don't believe the school committee has held their formal required public forum on school matters since the first year of the charter. So he can't attend it if it's not held. I would still then say met most, if not all, right? But how would we be able to indicate that he did what he could, but the school committee has not been doing their job under the charter? Just an example there. But for the ones that I mentioned before of assuming, I think we maybe as a council need to agree on, do we rate those as not applicable, or do we rate them as what we assume was done? Because I would feel personally horrible rating a lot of his charter performance as not applicable, because that's not how I feel about many of these, because I believe he's doing the job. I just don't want him to have to count and present it to us, So I think maybe it's more of a decision amongst the counselors as to what we do with them. The other option would be, instead of listing A through X separately, having one that just says met the requirements of the charter or performed the duties listed in 3.2 of the charter as a whole, and then we might be much more able to rate that under these met most, met some, minimally met, or didn't meet, and all, instead of all of them separately. And then we'd include all of them, which I think is important, but we wouldn't have to pick a number for every single one.
Okay. Jennifer?
Yeah, I guess I was a little confused at the comment that there's too many items in the evaluation. I mean, we set the goals. So we set fewer goals and there won't be so many items in the evaluation. I think it's really helpful when we set the goals to have all those charter responsibilities then we maybe will add fewer goals on top of that. Because I have to say, that we're setting the goals, I'm not really thinking about that. So I think it's really helpful that we do.
Kathy?
I meant to take my hand down, but I actually like Mandy's idea, and it would make us all read that page of the charter. So,
Okay.
and then you could ask us to say, if you thought something could have been done better, what was it? So we would have to write some sentences, like, for the most part, it was great, but on the other hand, there were a lot of things going on that we never heard about, or whatever it is, as opposed to yes, nos. So just think about narrowing a bit, because it's daunting. When I went through a lot of these, I almost had a lot of them, yes, it happened, and I don't need to do that kind of rating. So I like having it there, but shortening it a bit would be great.
Anna?
As you go through this, please remember that one step of this process is that the town council president has to consolidate everyone's information that they shared into a single memo. One of the things that we were really trying to avoid was the scenario that we continually got ourselves in with the last way that we did these goals, which is that we had a multi-part, multi-question goal on the page that we then had to evaluate, and we provided written comments on, and it got completely washed out when we tried to put it all together into one piece of feedback. The reason why we broke everything out, the reason why GOL pushed for action those specific action items, was because we wanted it to be an evaluation on one thing at a time. And when you start putting multiple items in an evaluation, it's all going to come out right in the middle, because there's always going to be pieces that are met. Paul, you are phenomenal, and there will always be pieces that are not met perfectly. So when you smush things together, and if this is the direction the council chooses to go, then obviously we will respect that. But when you put multiple items into one question, you're going to get somewhere in the middle, no matter what you do. Additionally, we reduced the number of opportunities for folks to specify that type of qualitative feedback, because again, it's very hard to then do that type of data analysis. First off, is challenging, but to then smush that all into a response to the town manager, or a response memo, is really hard. There's 13 of us. If we each have an opportunity to give a big long block about all of the things in that big question that we would like to provide feedback on, the town council president then needs to look at 13 big long blocks. And y'all, it is 9:07. We are verbose. Like, this is not a secret. So we were trying to think of this, and this is not the only opportunity we have to talk to the town manager. So these are things that we can have conversations about in a town council meeting. We can have conversations about in individual meetings with the town manager. The town manager evaluation is a tool. It is an evaluative tool. It is the formal evaluative tool. That does not mean that we cannot have conversations throughout the year about those elements in the charter or in the goals, whatever it might be. And I'm really glad that this is spurring the reflection on the number of goals that we have. We cannot remove goal items from the town manager evaluation. We voted those. We had many discussions about those. Those are the goals. Those are what we did. But I hope that is something that folks bear in mind when we get around to the goals in a few short months.
Anna, there are two other issues that GOL has grappled with, and I'm not sure that we have a final conclusion, and that is the issue of staff evaluations and the issue of basically committee and public. I'm going to just lump them together, okay? Did you want any comments on that?
Sure. GOL is continuing to wrestle with these and has yet to find a perfect answer. And so I'd love insights that folks might have, or thoughts folks might have on how to best go about this. We're trying to figure out the best way to get feedback that's useful to the council in filling out our own reflections, our own evaluations. So a few of the things that we've talked about are having folks using the survey with a little bit of logic involved. So like the forms logic, meaning we would ask folks to say, which of the following goals set by the town council or charter items would you like to provide reflection on? They'd select, and then they'd only have to respond for those items. Because the public and the staff are not the town manager's supervisors in the sense that we are, right? Or the town manager's evaluators in the sense that we are, that is appropriate for them. It would not be appropriate for the council to be able to pick and choose elements. But for staff and the public, we're trying to figure out how to get the pieces to them to provide feedback that are the most relevant to the work that they do or the ways that they engage. That's not to say we wouldn't welcome feedback on every piece, but again, trying to focus it a little bit more. Additionally, to the public and to the committee chairs, we've always just send us your feedback, open answer question, and we're trying to think about how to focus that a little bit more to get feedback on some of the pieces that we may not see of the town manager's work with committees or with staff. How do we give focused questions to them? So that's GOL folks, if I'm missing a piece of the conversation, but we have, I will say GOL has really struggled with this question of how, if and how, to seek feedback from the general public as well as from staff. The conclusion seems to be that GOL would still like to solicit that feedback, and now we're just trying to figure out how to get feedback that is helpful.
Counselor Haneke?
So from the staff, I think using many of the items detailed in Article 3.2 would be helpful for us. Certainly some of them you could leave out, and this is where I would support leaving out because some of them are literally dealing with just the council, which is us, attend all meetings of the town council. Well, we don't need to hear from the staff on that one. But hearing from the staff on supervising directly and being responsible for the efficient administration or the compensation of town employees or personnel policies and things like that, if we left those in there and asked staff to comment on them, I think that would be really helpful to us and solve also part of the problem with how do we evaluate the manager on those issues that we don't have any direct sort of experience with necessarily. At this point, I don't have thoughts on how to solicit helpful feedback from the public.
Any other comments? Seeing none? Yes, go ahead.
I'm happy to show folks what this would look like as a form on Microsoft Forms if people would like to. It's the same questions, it's just I can show you how it's formatted a little bit differently, and that's how we're hoping to distribute this. I don't know if it would make sense to send, it's on my computer, but I'm trying to figure out how to, the best way to do that, if I should send screenshots or what, but I'm happy to show folks who would like to see what this looks like in actual form of distribution as well, because it is slightly different to see.
Are you suggesting you do that now?
No, I'm just
okay.
suggesting if anyone would like to see that they'd reach out to
Okay.
me.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments on this?
Thank you all very much. This has been very helpful.
Thanks. We're going to move on to, we did do appointments. George, congratulations on Jones Library. And we're going to now go on to the committee and liaison reports. BCG, as I mentioned last time, we are scheduling a meeting for November 13th from noon to 2. And that will be after we have gotten the financial indicators so that we will have that to focus on. CRC?
Thank you. I did report last week that the CRC has closed its public hearing on the Article 5, which is the accessory dwelling unit bylaw. And we voted our approval of it as amended in that meeting, which was September 11. The amended bylaw that we're recommending will come as a report, but it includes the state mandated ADU type by right. And it will also include a local version of ADU that allows a larger footprint with owner occupancy requirements and a special permit process. So GOL, be prepared for the next report. Thanks.
Okay, any questions? Okay, Elementary School Building Committee, Kathy?
Uh, We had one meeting since last Monday. We met last Friday. The issue of the playground surface is still in flux, but we may be getting closer. And we meet again in a couple weeks. The school, if anyone hasn't seen it, there are now bricks on the outside of it. So there's all the geothermal wells are in, all the metal structure is up. And now that we're at the point of racing to get the electrical wiring in and transformers. So the building is moving along quite well.
Thank you. Any questions? Finance Committee, Kathy?
I don't think Finance Committee has met since we met last Monday. We meet tomorrow and at the new time of 10 in the morning. We will be, several items on the agenda are focused on thinking about the coming budget issues, what questions we might be able to ask now that would help us. And the school's also got a set of reports called the Mars reports. We'll have a brief discussion on the extent to which they're useful or any questions we might have. And then the final thing we started 2 weeks ago was to look at the guidelines and just think of which, if any, things we might want to change or add to them. And I guess the last item is putting Paul on the spot is when we could expect certain reports, knowing that the finance staff in town is understaffed is an understatement right now.
Okay. GOL, Anna?
GOL will be meeting tomorrow. And next week we've got, August was so calm, and now GOL has everyone's referrals are coming through to us at the exact same time. So thank you, everyone. So GOL has 2 referrals from TSO and 1 from CRC on the docket for tomorrow. That would be the inclusionary zoning from CRC and changes to the public way policy and transportation and parking commission charge from TSO. We finally heard back from KP Law on those, so we're able to discuss them. We'll hopefully get through them tomorrow, but we will see if we need to possibly move on to next week just to make sure that we can get everything done. We also continue to work on the town manager evaluation process. Your every council meeting reminder that if you have any changes to the town council rules of procedure, to please send them to me in track change form. And GOL continues to carry on. And it sounds like we're waiting on we'll get even more referrals from these committees in the coming weeks. So that's also very exciting. Thank you.
Hold on. Yes, Jones Library. I guess we don't.
Well, I can,
Well,
yeah, I can announce there will be a meeting on September 22nd. That
Okay.
is-
Paul, did you have anything?
No, not beyond. We did get, I think it reported a payment from the Jones Library Capital Fund for $2 million. That was reported in the town manager report.
Okay. Pam?
I wanted to report that I sent in my resignation to the chair of the Jones Library Building Committee and to the librarian.
Thank you. And George has now been elected to that, so. Town services and outreach, Andy?
Yes, we haven't had a meeting since the last council meeting, but we do have a meeting this week on Thursday. We will come back to the public urination bylaw that was referred to the committee and have a draft of a bylaw to discuss at Thursday's meeting. As was mentioned by Anna, the Transportation and Parking Commission is going to be discussed at the GOL meeting. It really is now theirs because they have the next stage in the process. But we do to put it on the agenda so that if there are any requests that come from GOL on Tuesday's meeting, that we have a place that we can address it on Thursday's meeting. If we might have a brief discussion of Heatherstone Road, but I doubt that it's just a placeholder there in case there's something that anybody wanted to talk about. But at this point, I think we're waiting to get input from the district councilors as to whether they have created a forum, and so it's really a holding. The rest of the things have to do with sort of future issues that were, and I thank you, you added to our list earlier in this meeting, but we knew we are trying to get on with planning for the rest of the current council term, and then establish future meeting schedule and agendas to address the issues that we still deal with within the remaining months that are available in this term. And so that's basically the agenda.
Liaison reports. I did forward to you the Human Rights Commission annual report, and I mentioned at the last meeting they have asked to present this on our agenda. I'd ask you to review it and tell me if you feel the need for a formal presentation of the report and a discussion with the Human Rights Commission. The earliest we would do that is in November. You don't? I'm sorry?
Do we have the report?
I thought I sent it to you on Wednesday. I can
Sorry.
resend it, but thank you, Anna, for confirming that. Okay, future agenda items, no, actually, President's report. This kind of goes into the future agenda items as well. As several of you were able to attend the meeting on Tuesday with the joint school committees of Amherst, Pelham, and the region. The Mars people had to cancel at the very last minute, and we were notified of that about 2 hours in advance. There was an interesting discussion for those of you who were not able to attend about what should future meetings look like, and should there be some joint discussions with the council and the select boards being present. There is a goal of rescheduling the Mars presentation. The date that I have heard is the 25th at 5 o'clock, but that has not been confirmed, and I have checked as recently as tonight, and I still don't know if it's been confirmed. And I do understand that on the agenda that same evening, the regional schools were going to discuss whether they were setting a time for a four towns meeting, and they did not. So I don't know that we have much more, except you do have the Mars reports, and as Kathy has mentioned, finance will be looking at those with the eye towards what did they say, what didn't they say, what else do we think is missing, et cetera. Counselor Haneke.
The school committee did indicate that they were going to try and reschedule the Mars presentation with them for the 25th, though.
They did, yes,
Yeah.
but I've tried to confirm that because they said that was a request they had into Mars, but at the
Right.
time of the meeting, they could not confirm it, and they didn't confirm it today. Unless somebody's seen something I haven't seen. Okay, Anna?
I just wanted to ask Kathy, what did you anticipate? I apologize, talking about the Mars report tomorrow at finance?
Just, it wasn't going to be a report on it, but just a discussion.
Sure, yeah, but is that tomorrow?
Yes.
I want to put it on my calendar. Okay.
Yeah.
And if we have questions on that, would it, I didn't know that it was just going to go to finance. And I think that if we have questions on it, should we send those to Kathy or should we?
That'd be great. You know, I put it on mainly because it was timely and
Absolutely.
at least one person, Bob, expressed, boy, they got this wrong or the wording wasn't quite right. So
Okay.
I don't think we're going to focus a lot on it. You know, well, you don't need, there's one number that's wrong, but it's not because they're wrong. It's because the state report's wrong. And one of the school committee people already picked that up.
And so that you're leading to my next question, which was at the school committee meeting, they said that, or the superintendent who's kind of leading this charge about the report said that school committee members should let her know of anything to bring back to Mars. Are you planning to compile a list from finance as well to send along to the superintendent?
You have a good question. I didn't think we would get very far tomorrow other than to find out
Okay.
to the extent to what people had it. So I wasn't intending on doing, but I'd be happy to do that. You
Either
know,
way, yeah.
I'd be happy to play that role and just be a sponge for, there were some very good comments that at least a couple people on the school committee already submitted, and I read those.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't need to go into, there's a state report that's actually a wrong report that I picked up when we picked it up. It's on the
Yeah.
number of charter kids. The numbers are just wrong.
Right. Okay.
So,
Okay.
so
Thank you. I
yes.
just wasn't, I think sometimes we have really rich discussion and then it kind of sits in our committees. And I just want to make sure that, one, folks who aren't on finance have an opportunity to ask those questions, but two.
If it's a rich discussion, it won't just sit in the committee.
Excellent.
My bet is we'll be pretty short and decide how much more we want to do, go with them.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Ryan?
So I'm grateful that finance is going to take this up. I hope I can sit in on it. I certainly will see the tape. I would, since so much of the Mars report seems to focus on the town finances, in the best of all possible worlds, I'd like to hear from our financial staff. And maybe that's going to take some time, but I really would very much like to hear what staff makes of the report, since it says a lot about our financial situation. But I'm very grateful that you guys are going to take it up.
Counselor Haneke? Okay. So under future agenda items, let me just give you a preview of what I think is going to happen on October 6th and October 20th. We are planning a Hickory Ridge update, and on one of those, on the 6th. On the 6th or the 20th, we're hoping to look at some long-range plans for roads and sidewalks. For under action items, we still are waiting for Paley Village road acceptance. We'll see whether inclusionary zoning bylaw is ready for the first read, accessory dwelling units for the first read. Transportation and Parking Commission, while it doesn't require 2 reads, we probably will have it on the council agenda for 2 nights because of questions. And then the public way policy does require, so we hope to get to a first read on that on the 6th. I do need to bring to you a calendar for the evaluation, which is in my head. And then the Charter Review Committee has voted to ask for an extension of when their report is due. And they did not ask for it in time for it to be on this agenda, so it would have to wait until the 6th. In addition to that, we may have appointments for the Planning and Economic Development Director and for the Board of Health. And the meeting on the 20th actually is a lot of second readings and votes on various things. And town manager report. Kathy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just, you said Hickory Ridge on the 6th. You said next meeting would have Hickory Ridge.
Yes.
Okay, so if I have some questions, should I send them through you or should I send them to Dave or should I send them to
You
Paul?
should send them to Paul with a CC to me.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments? Let me also mention that I'm scheduling our meetings between now and the end of December is like floating crap game. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, it's because, for example, and I really want to thank the committee chairs that have scheduled discussions about this, because it's critical that we hear from you. For example, I learned in reading the newspaper that evidently we're going to get a request from the regional schools for a roof money for the middle school. And so that obviously would be a referral to finance and so forth. I do know that they have been in touch with one of the towns that is having a fall town meeting, but they did not get in touch with one of the other towns in time to get it on their schedule. So I don't know where all that stands. Are there any other future agenda items that people want to bring up at this time? Are there counselor comments?
Yes.
Andy?
I just wanted to take a few seconds to acknowledge some and remember somebody. And I know a lot of you didn't work with John Usanti when he was town manager and finance director. This is Saturday is the 10th anniversary of his passing. He was in the role of town manager, in the active employment of town manager, and his passing, it's a shock to all of us who are active, and especially the select board, because the select board becomes the town manager under that circumstance. So I was 1/5 of being town manager for a short period. But the thing I remember about John, as I think about him, is how much he loved the town of Amherst and how much he contributed. And when I do things and involved with things that for the town as a counselor, I continually come across something that I said, "Oh, that was John's idea. That was John's creation." And I won't give them today because I don't want to go on longer, but I just wanted to take a moment to remember somebody that we lost 10 years ago.
Thank you. Bob Hegner.
Yeah, this is a little more mundane than what Andy just discussed. I knew John Musante too. I'm going to miss our next meeting because I'm going to be away on vacation, just so everyone knows.
Okay. Counselor Ette?
Speaking about mundane, today is the start of the Tell It Slant Festival, the Emily Dickinson Festival, and I think it's just a wonderful expression of everything that I like about Amherst. It's literate, it's cosmopolitan, and so if you have an opportunity to attend any of the events, some of them will be live, some will be on Zoom. I hope we'll all make an opportunity to do so. This will be my third year reading Emily Dickinson's poems, and so if you want to hear stuttering as I tackle some of those poems and others who are much more eloquent, I think just enjoy the festival.
Could you just send us the information? I know we've been sent it once, but why don't you send us the information and let us know when you're reading?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other counselor comments? Seeing none, I make a motion to adjourn. Seek a second.
DeAngelo seconds that with gusto.
Kathy Shane?
Is this the vote?
Yes.
Yes, I'm seconding it. Yes.
Andy Steinberg?
Aye.
Jennifer Taub?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis?
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gauthier?
Aye.
Counselor Ette?
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer is an aye. Counselor Haneke?
Aye.
Bob Hegner?
Yes.
Counselor Lord?
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
If you say nay, you stand alone. The meeting is adjourned.